Your attention, please. This is your official civil defense broadcaster.
One of the greatest threats would be radioactive fallout.
Uranium fever.
Where fallout is heaviest, it can even kill those who have not taken proper shelter.
Broadcasting deep underground in a questionably constructed survivalist bunker is Dave CHAFINZ and KENNETH VIGUE, and your host, as always, Mr. Robots. This episode of the Fallout Hub is brought to you by Nuka-Cola. Try their new multi-flavor variety pack and urinate in 8 different festive shades.
Hey there, Wastelanders and Vault Dwellers. Welcome back to this episode of the Fallout Hub. I am your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here as usual, stuck in our vault with my 2 co-hosts. I have Ken and Dave. Fellas, how have you been? Talking at the same time. Go.
I think Pete Hines took my toothbrush when he left.
Yeah, well, at least he left because... Okay, so I guess we need to describe what the last few weeks have been like. So, if you guys tuned into the big episode we had with Pete Hines and Oxhorn and Juicehead, we had a ton of fun. It was a super good episode, right, guys? We had a great time.
Yes.
So fun, so much fun that Pete, good old Uncle Pete, decided to just stay with us. He just kind of moved in, and we finally got rid of him so we could record this next episode. Yeah. So he took your toothbrush.
Yeah, he took my toothbrush.
Well, at least he didn't sleep in your bed with you. That was super awkward.
No.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I have a pitch. I meant to pitch this idea to Juicehead last time he was on, but I'll pitch it to you guys because he's not here, and who else am I going to pitch this to? So you know, like Siren Head, which is like a big phenomenon in creepypasta and has been made into like this Fallout 4 mod and is like getting its own game called Siren Head. It's essentially this like lanky, like super tall thing that plays radio messages and like scares people and teleports. A lot like Enderman or Slenderman. I think that his name is I think Siren Head. So we need to make a Juice Head where it's the same concept, but it's just like a bowl of juice on top. And then he like, when he walks, it like splashes over. And then whoever's caught in that juice, it's like acid. That's my pitch.
The caught in the juice.
I'm very on topic today. I'll have you know that I am right there with it. So.
Every time you die, all you see splashed on the screen is you've been juiced. Start over.
Been juiced.
You've been juiced.
Or no, beaten to a pulp.
Oh, dear.
Juiced.
But that's when you get the power up, is you get juiced.
It goes into slow motion and fades to gray and goes juiced. You've been juiced.
Bam, 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 bam.
Oh, that's why nobody visits us.
That or we're in a vault in the middle of nowhere. Although wait, we do have a weird number of people who just kind of wander in here. So I guess we can't say that nobody visits us. It just kind of happens strangely.
That's true.
So yeah. So
it does feel like we've been here forever.
Yeah, it does feel like we've been here forever. Strange last few weeks. Somehow we were able to get rid of Pete. I don't know where he ended. I hope he made it back to wherever he was going. But yet we still can't leave the vault, which is strange. But anyway. Oh, hey, look, the doorbell.
Telegram, news from Bethesda.
Oh, we've got some more Bethesda news. Let's just dive into that.
Any minute now.
Quick transition.
I thought we were going down on a tangent with that doorbell. I was like, oh, who's at the door now?
It's the doorbell. Oh, it's just the news.
It's just the news.
It's Dave playing with the doorbell switch.
Take it away. Are you triggering the doorbell? Is that how this works?
Yeah, totally triggering that doorbell. I'm like a little kid when they discover that they can ring it, or when they have the lock button on the cars and they press it a bunch of times and you're like, hey, go lock the car, and they're like, beep, 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 and that's me.
Mm-hmm. Or you're on a cruise ship and you're going up and down the elevator and there's like 20 floors on the cruise ship and somebody got in it before you and hit all the buttons, and then you're late to the show and you don't get a seat, and then you have to completely change your plans and you don't get to see the Blue Man Group.
Yep. Sounds personal. Anyways.
Yeah, go on.
This week we've got some Bethesda news. I'm looking at the calendar right now. One of the things that I want to put out there is that there's a double XP weekend. I believe next weekend is when that starts, or is it this weekend? The calendar.
Thank the Lord,
Pretty sure
Adam for that, because I need it. We'll go into that later.
Followed up, we've got the treasure hunting event is coming up. That's a new event that they are adding. I'm curious as to what that is going to be. And on the night, so that runs, I think, from the 15th to the 18th. And then on the 19th, we've got Fosnot returning, which is always a very exciting time.
Fosnot! I hope they have new masks. I want new masks.
I have mine on display in my camp, and every time like somebody I'm doing like a back alley deal or something, they're like, hey man, how much for that owl mask? I'm like, it's not for sale. They're like, you see this plan? I can give you this plan. I'm like, I don't want that plan. I want my mask. They're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool.
I got 500 ammo. Don't need your ammo.
Everybody's got a price, man. Everybody's got a price.
Let's see what else. Bethesda started up a new Discord server. It's kind of their old E3 one that they have revitalized, and they're calling Bethesda at Home. There's a bunch of different channels for not only Fallout, but all of their other great games. And there is some speculation that there's going to be some news with their next year releases here in the summer months. We can talk more about that later. The other piece of news is, Ken, you have spearheaded recently. You know, it's always fun when we have hosts in the news for Fallout. You have recently spearheaded something. Why don't you give us a little bit of background on that as the gumshoe?
I've penetrated deep into the community.
Oh boy.
I've put both hands in and I've pulled out.
Whoa boy.
Since, let me see, for the last, I think 8 months now, there's like a role players chat that's on Facebook, a group for a lot of the people who run role play servers, the Fallout 5.0, the Vultures, the Free States, a whole bunch of people that coordinate kind of in this private chat. So we talk about life and the game, and they also use that to frame some of their stuff. Lately, they've been working on the first Machinima series. They're going to have some very special guest stars when they release the next episode, I think later this month. But one of the first real role players in the game is known by Doc CJ Martin. His name is Brent Fairchild. And I had met him way back at the start of the game when I'd seen some of the video ads that he put out on Facebook in kind of an old-timey doctor's clinic advertising stim packs and Radaway and things like that. So I started following him after that. And since then, he's extremely well-known and well-respected in the PS4 community, but so much so that people on all platforms have kind of heard of him as well and seen the work that he does. If there are Queen fights, he'll go down there with his clinic tent and set something up, handing out waters and stim packs and stuff for people. All role-played in character as this wasteland doctor. So he's kind of a really unique figure, but has really helped a lot of people in the community. If you go to Fight Club 76, we had the Fight Club guys on here earlier this season, and he's always there lurking around in the background. But we'd heard from his wife in the chat that their home had caught fire. There was only one door out of the place. It's a manufactured home. So unfortunately, the fire had broke out around the entryway. So he went outside and was trying to get the fire put out with a fire extinguisher to get the flames away from the door to get his family out. And as he was doing that, and as they were kind of gathering things to get out, the awning that was over the door liquefied. And, it's burning plastic and stuff on his face, hands, and feet. His feet particularly were severely damaged. So he ended up being airlifted to Jefferson Burn Center in Philadelphia, where they cared for his wounds. He had a breathing tube put in everything from the smoke inhalation, which had damaged his lungs. So we heard about this kind of horrific story. We were originally just going to send cards, but between medical bills and the damage to their home, we thought we'd start a modest GoFundMe with just like $1,000 to at least be something for them. Very quickly, as soon as we did that, I think within 16 minutes, we hit the $1,000 mark, and it just continued to grow and grow, and circulated through the Discord communities and Facebook groups. Pete Hines had heard about it through Twitter, my Twitter when I shared it on there, and some of the Bethesda employees contributed, himself included personally. They put together a special care bundle as well that they sent to him, but it was just this massive outpouring in the community. As of right now, I'm going to shut it down the next few hours, but in less than a week, we not only went past the $1,000 goal, we're at $11,440,
Wow.
which is just completely mind-bending to get that kind of turnout in the Fallout community, which just goes to show how close everyone is in this community, and it's really just kind of surprising. Even some of the people at Bethesda were really amazed by how quickly this ballooned into this kind of movement to help them out. He's home now, recovering. He is starting to be able to walk more on his own because his feet were so damaged. When he was originally discharged, he needed help getting around, but he's good to go now. He was back in game this weekend at the clinic, picking up his post. He was really emotional, his whole family was, about helping them through this process. They couldn't believe it. Even his sister, who's not really into video games and always thought the idea was kind of crazy, had sent me an email and said, I've never seen anything like this. Clearly I was wrong about video games, which is true.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
It's such a tragic thing, but it turned out so heartwarming,
Every now and then it's nice to see a positive story. A lot of some of the gaming magazines had covered. We got Kotaku, all of which help International Games Radar Australia. We got stuff pouring in from all over the world, including people who had never heard of him or played with him, but had just read the article, saw the story, and contributed to it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It just goes to show the power of community.
Very much so, yeah.
And I think a lot of people right now want to come together, and I think particularly, this Fallout community that's been growing in the past, really kind of exploding in the last 2 years. I think everyone yearns to work together on something positive and to come together.
Especially now, I think at a time where everything is so bleak and we are without control, being able to take $5 or $10 and do something positive to feel good about yourself and help another person. I think it was timing as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, thanks for putting that together, Ken. That's amazing that it blew up as much as it did. I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure they're very thankful for everything everyone pitched in.
Extremely thankful, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I should have saved that news bit for last, as that would have made a good transition, but I do have one more piece of news for everyone. Turn the page. Page 22, the Free Radicals Mask, which was a quest reward for one of the quests that Duchess sends you on for looking for a particular treasure hunter. At the end of the quest, if you sided with a faction a certain way. Obviously, well, Free Radicals mask just kind of sells it out there. You would get a mask with a random legendary effect. And so people were essentially farming this event with multiple characters because it was a pretty low-level quest to get their role for their favorite mask that they had. Now, this is the only legendary mask in the game that even had that effect. Recently it has been revealed by Bethesda that in the next patch that is going out. They are getting rid of the legendary effect on the mask. That has left some people joyous in the name of fashion, and some people very angry in the name of continuing their very, very strong builds.
Yeah, I'm a little split on this. I'm curious as to why they didn't start just adding more legendary effects to other masks in order to kind of balance this out. But I get why they want to stop the farming of this specific mask.
I understand what they did. It has really, really caused a hubbub in the community. People were quite upset. For me, traditionally, when you did some of the original quests, even in the vanilla game, you would get a random legendary. Now, mind you, it was a legendary weapon. Like, even when you did the New Responders quest, you would get random drops of legendary gear for completing those. Those drops, I don't even believe can be scripted, but you got them nonetheless. So it would be unusual to put the effort into doing anything with the Free Radicals just to get this kabuki mask. like unless you're gonna put it up in your base, I don't know if there's enough of an interest to get you to go down this quest line if you're just going to get something that isn't practical beyond has
no real use.
Right. It's just like, oh, hey, look, it's a cool wood mask.
Right.
I don't know.
To me, like, the original intent of the outfits was that you could wear something without, looking like there's plenty of communities out there that like to have like a nice set of armor that's like all, cohesive, or even ones that are, kind of piecemeal to make it look like you just kind of like strap stuff to your body and hope it works. So there's a great, as the Fallout fashionista here. I'm kidding. I think the outfit system was intended as being a way to switch it up and change things, also working hand in hand with kind of their atomic shop situation. And so to me, that having like a helmet that's more of a cosmetic piece have a legendary effect kind of takes away from the other, I guess, cosmetic things that are out there. Because like, I would be cool with it if you could change, like if you could put on a different helmet, like if there was like
you cover it up just like the armor.
Right.
Right.
But having it just like that, it's like, then every single, like, you could identify every single high level player by their mask,
Yeah. It clearly doesn't work in that way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think, I don't know if it was described as being unintended, but the game was vetted considerably before launch. So I think if it was unintended, it would have been figured out by now. I think the real challenge came from how people were getting the masks that they wanted, which, you essentially play through. If you don't get the mask you want, you simply exit that cell and go back in before it completes, in which case you can grind it again. So a lot of people were just doing that repeatedly to get the mask that they wanted. And that may have been one of the reasons, is that you could essentially just keep repeating it until you got the greatest mask that you were really looking for with the best effect.
I wonder why they didn't just cause it to auto-save on giving you the mask.
I'm not sure. I think that's just how the cells work.
Yeah, maybe it's more fundamental than that. Because that would, once you get it, you go, oh, well, this is what I got. There's no opportunity for me to exit and re-get it.
Yeah, like once you get it, it's locked to your character, and that's
right.
it.
Like, that's it. That's the one you got. You can trade with someone else, but that's yours.
See, my thing is oftentimes I wish that there were more legendary effects in the game, but I'm thinking about like Fosnot coming up with those masks and how those are kind of like really the things that people are looking for. What if these masks had like some like weird, like useless effects? Like the owl mask gave you legendary, like it gave the legendary effect of just like giving you wings, like you just had wings. Or yeah. Like the witch mask, like it made it look like that you were always like poisoned or something. Like
right, or something that gives you like big head mode in NBA Jam.
Yeah.
And you just like have a swollen head.
The old man winter mask, you could shoot icicles.
Yeah.
Just have snow swirling around you, like in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
If they brought us into a test room for like, okay, what features do we want to add? And we're like, big head mode. Everyone would be like, shut up.
We want magic. We want magic in a science fiction game.
I want giant shoulder pads. Like, wow. What?
Yes. But as far as the news, that is it for what we've got today.
Well, good stuff. Let's move on to our Fallout 101 discussion for the week. And this week we're talking about, if you just pick up the game, what important tips would we want to give them? Tips and tactics for new players.
So I want it to be like, what is the like number one, like most important tip? Like if you were off of Fallout 76 or you never got into it until just now, it's like, what's the one thing that like hasn't been, like for me, it's like stuff that hasn't been even in other Fallout games that I play like this one. So for mine, it would be up until pretty much, I mean, I wouldn't say even stop at level 50. I would say this is just a constant thing. Pick up everything, every single weapon. You're gonna be over encumbered, and just scrap a bunch of it. Just like go in a scrapping game, because through that you get mods. Yeah. And to me, as a low level player, like, well, when I was the wee lad, the mods were probably the most important thing as far as like getting like powerful weapons and getting that stuff up, and that stuff carries over when you're, level 100 or whatever, and you're walking around trying to find your legendary role. You want to mod it out to your liking. And I mean, even with late game weapons, it's so important with like handmaids, which are probably I'd still say the number one like go-to weapon of the game. They're kind of the Swiss Army knife of ranged weapons within the game. You're still going to want to scrap those just so you can learn the different mods and different stuff. So that's my one tip.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do it while you're just leveling than it is to go back and purposely farm it.
Right. Because you're most likely moving your camp pretty frequently, because you really don't have much of one set up. And so you're closer to your stash box, to all the scrap, to train stations, and so on.
So my tip would follow almost directly on the heels of yours, in that I think one of the best things you absolutely can do if you want to get the most out of your leveling experience is to pay for 1 month of Fallout First, or more, but at least 1 month, and get your scrap box and get your pop-up tent. Because as we all know, in Fallout games, you're constantly playing the inventory management game, and in my opinion, that takes away from the enjoyment of getting through the quests and enjoying the content. It also means that you are going to fill up your stash at some point through the leveling process, and a lot of it's going to be scrap.
Yeah.
So if you can get the scrap box and you have the pop-up tent, then you can place that wherever you are in the moment in order to just dump all your stuff in it, because you're not necessarily going to have your backpack. You may not have a lot of strength. You won't have power armor to help carry more weight, and none of that stuff. So it allows you to just pick up everything that you want, and every 30 minutes or hour, however long it takes you to hit that maximum limit of weight, dump off all the scrap, and then keep going through with the quests. And then you spend way less time dealing with the inventory. And then later on, when you no longer have Fallout First, you still keep all the scrap. So once you get to the point where you're building out your camp more and you're upgrading your weapons and items and repairing stuff or whatever, then you have all that scrap that you can just start pulling from without having to worry about running out of space in your regular inventory.
And to me, like, you shouldn't be like from a low level, like you really shouldn't be saving that much in your stash outside of scrap. And so if you're playing and your scrap box tends to fill up, like, you're playing this game for a good bit. And so it may be something to consider. Also, if you get Fallout First, you can become one of the Power Rangers, which come in a variety of colors, including olive, slightly tan, slightly gray, a little bit more plastic, and I think there's one more, but I forgot. And together they get you get Liberty Prime, except he's very gray.
He's very gray.
He's very gray.
Ken, what's your tip?
Mine is very simple. Take your time.
Money. Oh, time.
Oh.
That's one of the biggest ones, because unfortunately, because we were waiting for this for quite a while, when it dropped, I know a lot of people who really binged the main quest line and got it knocked out very quickly. And once you do that, there's kind of no going back. And then you're in the end game of, grinding for rep and bullion, which can be kind of tedious as opposed to just enjoying the experience, which is kind of how I've been playing. Well, partly because I haven't had as much time as a lot of people to play through. So I stay kind of hyper-focused on what I'm doing with the main quest line. But beyond that, I promised myself I would swear off fast travel. And doing that, you get a chance to run into a lot of the new encounters that they put in the game. There are over 40 of them. So you have a chance to run into some really unique scenarios that didn't exist in the vanilla game, and even locations that are unmarked that are now added.
Like Tom's robot.
Like Tom's robot.
Tom's robot.
Thanks, Bethesda.
Yeah, that's definitely a nod. That's too coincidental.
Poor buddy bot.
But yeah, just take your time and enjoy it. Don't feel like you need to grind through it so quickly. The other reason that's important is if you're in a Discord group or a faction you're playing with friends, it can be difficult for you to focus on the storyline, much less the kind of the lore and what the NPCs are saying if you've got 8 people yelling in your ear as well. So bear that in mind, to kind of take your time, focus on the story, even if you have to do that with just 1 or 2 people as opposed to a whole group of people.
Yeah, good solid points there.
Yeah,
Get through it and take your time. Pay attention to the story because it's cool.
Drink plenty of water in game, off game, just every day.
Don't
Half your
forget to
body
bring a
weight.
towel.
I put an Advil in your lunchbox.
Cool. So the next thing on our list is Wastelanders, and I'm going to point out here. I don't know who put this bullet point in here. Main story.
I mean, that's the one that made the show notes. Before we get, I just want to check before we actually get into the segment.
We're telling the story of the main story.
It's the story.
The main story.
It's totally meta.
Yeah.
It's let's see here. So is everybody cool with this kind of like setup for discussion? I feel like that if we talk about the story first, we're gonna naturally get to a few of these things on here, but I just kind of wrote down stuff to make sure that we remember to talk about it. And sometimes I got, I wrote this I think late at night, so like the companions are like spaceship girl, bartender boy, 6-string tickler, Wes Johnson as grandpa.
So
Grandpa Johnson.
I haven't gotten through most of this yet. I mean, I played a good, 12 hours of it, but I can talk about this. We may want to just relay our own experiences up to this point rather than getting through all the stuff.
That's what I'm kind of thinking is like we kind of talk about where we are currently.
Yeah.
In the story and be able to kind of fill in those spaces as we go on. So I probably have gotten the farthest out of everyone. I'm now flying around in my jetpack, feeling very happy about that.
Yeah, but
so that may be a way.
I'm probably the least furthest, so maybe I should start and explain to you how I've approached things and how far I've gotten.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can restart the segment.
All right. So let's move on to talking about Wastelanders and our own experiences in the game. And I'm going to go ahead and start because I think I've had the least amount of time to play. I've spent probably 12 or 15 hours so far in it. And I had the brilliant idea of starting a new character who I named Lance Johnson, who is the sexy boy. No relation to Chad Johnson. Or
what about Lance Armstrong?
Or maybe Lance Armstrong. I don't know. And he's a sexy boy. And his goal is to go charm the Wasteland. And he's a level 1 character, and I got into the Wastelanders stuff, started focusing on that content, and then very quickly kind of leveled out of my range to be able to do things without having to do some of the other quests, which I've already done. So I wasn't as interested in redoing the quests that I've already done. I wanted to see the new content. So I switched over to Derek. And people who listen to the Fallout Lorecast will remember Derek. He was the good, clean boy that I've been role-playing on stream. And he only made it up to about level 18. But I figured that was far enough along that I could get him up to 20, and then I could get into like the level 20 stuff. So I started over, got Derek running around the Wasteland. He is now conceiving of himself as a superhero who is trying to save everyone. And that's why he's trying to get along with the Raiders and the settlers all at the same time, because he is a superhero of the Wasteland. And he also has now gotten to a point where he is out-leveling, or the content is out-leveling him. So I'm a little bit down both of those paths for the Raiders and the settlers, but I've definitely hit this point where it's kind of getting difficult. And I've been trying to do most of this on my own. Sometimes people will pop in the stream and run around with me, but for the most part, I've been trying to just see, can I get through this as a single player experience? And part of the issue with Derek is that all of his points are in strength and luck. So he's terrible with guns. He's really, really bad with guns. And yeah,
he's a good boy. Good boys, good boys don't hold the guns,
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is that he just, I mean, he loved laser guns, but regular guns were too scary for him. So
exactly.
So yeah, but he's struggling. He's struggling with some of the content, so I'm going to have to do other things to level him up as well. So now I'm considering, okay, do I just go back to my main character who's like 80 something, because he's got like 300 hours in the game or whatever that's at now, and could easily get through all that content. But now I'm no longer role-playing either of these two funny characters, which I would rather be doing. So kind of in a dilemma of which way I want to go with it.
Ken, what about you? Where are you at right now?
Right now, I got with Beckett's quest. I have charmed and beguiled him. We are just about to head off to the Watoga Underground. Which I'm really looking forward to checking out. I plan on really exploring and taking lots of pictures down there.
Is that your honeymoon?
No,
that's your honeymoon location. Oh,
it's going to be like that scene in Titanic. Paint me like one of your French girls.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Yeah, take lots of pictures.
I'm going to take lots of pictures down there. In the main quest,
maybe down in the underground. Oh, in the underground, not in the
underground. Okay.
Not pictures of his down there. Got it.
Wow.
Why not both?
Okay. All right.
The other thing that I really enjoyed is I'm at the point now where the stealth suit is being fabricated currently by the settlers. With the Raiders, I'm helping them with a few quests. Hornwright Industrial, I got a chance to see the Motherlode, which is just, talk about a unique and fascinating entity. The voice of that, when you get a chance to hear it, reminds me an awful lot of Mother from the movie Alien. It has that same kind of monotone yet sickly sweet kind of female voice.
Yeah, I can see that.
She sounds just like Mother. But it's kind of an interesting character that you can ride around Appalachia in. Once you get through the quest line for the settlers and discover the communist base down in the deep. So I did all of that stuff. I haven't gotten to do the vault raid yet.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
All right.
So,
Dave, how far have you gotten?
Yeah, so I decided that with my free time I was going to kick ass and chew perk pack bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Is that the
Yeah, that's part of this game. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So I have gotten through the main quest. I've done all the companions. I am right now doing a little bit of grinding, but it's not necessarily, I don't know, it doesn't feel grindy to me. But it's nice. I kind of like the where the end game is at. I have bought the Secret Service armor plans and jetpack plans, and I am currently working on building those. Actually, no, I built those already. Yeah, I did that. So I had to re-roll with their new how they're doing a bunch of the stuff that you buy at the end game. You use legendary modules, and then you start rolling. And so I rolled a good enough one of the chest that was kind of better than the other one. Put that on my body, strapped a jetpack to it, and now I get to float above the peasants of
The peasants.
And so now it's like, I have a base that's or a camp that's in Charleston, so get a lot of low level players there. And there was the other day that this person was like following me, and then it came to a cliff, and then I like jetpacked from like a cliff onto a building, and this person just stood there, and I could imagine they were like, wow, look at him go, the legend.
So majestic.
So majestic.
Someday I might be like him.
I've managed, and I've spent. Let's not talk about time in this game because I refrained from fast traveling. I did fast travel through the companion quest because oftentimes I was like, all right, let's get this show on the road. Because sometimes it's a little bit like please bring me an apple. Now please bring me a peach. Now please bring me this. So oftentimes the back and forth with some of those random locations I fast traveled. But through the main quest, I stuck to the path, found a lot of like crazy, interesting things. Particularly in the forest is where I found most of my like interesting encounters and that kind of stuff. So that is particularly where I'm at. So most of us have gotten through the Wayward quest line, right? I think that's where the level cap is, right? For you, Tom, like, right?
For 20? I think that was the 20 level cap. Yeah, we're through that.
Let's talk about that some. So that's kind of like, I guess, the first introduction to the new way of playing this game. So what did everybody think about that? As far as like from the characters of Duchess and I mean the ideal character Bess, the robot with the
Bessie. Yeah. No, I love the personality in this. The personality, the performance, the characters that you're meeting, the way that things are still a little railroaded into, like, for the most part, most decisions will end up in the same path, but the way it branches and then comes back in is a little bit different depending on how you answer questions, which I've had the ability to explore, having different characters get through some of the original or early content. So that's interesting. I did a poll on Twitter, and I'm going to pull it up, and ask people what their favorite part of Wastelanders was. So let me get to that in a second. But Ken, what do you think about this?
I liked it a lot. I'm curious because I didn't. I played through the quest on my current character that I had from the original game. I haven't started over. I think in the original game, you don't start getting skilled in using your camp and whatnot until you make it all the way to Morgantown Airport and start up with the new responders. So you're kind of left to your own devices this whole time, as opposed to getting some of Mort's helpful tips from his tapes.
Those are great. As somebody who's already built like a bunch of camps and done it all, I still listen to all those, and they were really funny because it was like if I tried to like make a tutorial like of how to build a camp, I'm like, first you get the wood and you put it on the ground. Yep, on the ground. Yep, that's the right one.
Yeah. So I haven't seen how that is going to be that different. All of the the characters at the Wayward were really interesting. When you finally get a chance to decide if you are going to leave Crane or save him after you find out he's been converted to a Scorched. That was kind of an interesting reveal, that he'd been stashed up there the whole time, just in the Wayward.
Yeah, so
also,
I had a very interesting second encounter with that when I played Derek, because we went into the room, and then as she's talking, before even the dialogue options came up, Derek, she's like, somebody said something about smack him and wake him up or something like that. There's a line there that says that. So I just had Derek punch him, and he died like right then. One punch, dead, and she freaks out on you. And I was like, whoa, I kind of thought it would be funny just to smack him, because they said to smack him, and you know, figured he might take damage but wouldn't die. You know, like oftentimes it doesn't break the canned part of a game to do something like that. But no, he's just dead, and you get absolutely reprimanded by her. She just freaks out on you.
Interesting.
So
I
thought that was really interesting. I mean, it still moves on, and eventually the conversation comes back around to probably some of the lines that happen if you decide to, help by taking him out of his misery, that kind of thing. But,
I'm curious for a run through now with like, if you do the most chaotic things possible, like you just like constantly like cause as much chaos as you can in that run. I'm interested to see later on down the line if people are doing that and what that turns out to be.
Yeah, because some way they still have to get you through the content. They're not going to cut it off, but the characters, at least in this case, really do respond to it. So at least there's that.
Yeah, I think I might do that on my new character. Just be a complete sarcastic, chaotic mess.
Yeah, I found that really interesting.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part of the Wayward. I enjoyed exploring the mines and stuff again, doing all of that. That was really great.
There was this so with the farm, you go to the farm and the free radicals, and there's kind of this choice you have to make. It's like, do I want to like, is it worth it to completely dismantle the free radicals to save this like little farm that is like on the coast where they don't even really like you or want you to be there? So essentially, like playing through that, it was like I played a lot of this game like kind of how I would play myself, I guess, in that situation. And I was like, well, I don't really want to fight all of these people. And so I kind of felt like an asshole just going down there and being like, hey, listen, can you just leave the Wayward alone? You don't have to do anything else, just do that. And I had high enough charisma or strength or something, and they were like, oh yeah, sure. And
if you have a lot of strength, they go, okay, fine, we'll leave them alone. Yeah.
The other cool thing about them, when you explore through that base, you find out that they arrived kind of Mad Max style with these, they're building these crazy vehicles and they're just going to tear through Appalachia. So it's another tease of, here are vehicles. Oh, and you can't drive them.
Oh, can't drive them. Yeah. So going back to the whole Scorched thing, the question about like having somebody becoming a Scorched and what you do about it. So I that was one of the polls. I set up 2 polls, and on that poll I asked the question: your best friend becomes a Scorched, do you kill them? Yes or no? Put this on the Fallout Lorecast Twitter. 53 votes, 86.8% said yes, which means 13.2% said no. I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
There's a good, like, if you look at, so like when I did Vault Boys, I had fortunately one of my very good friends is like a doctor for like some like research organization up in New York. He's told me about his job, but he has one of those jobs where it's like, he's pretty close to the government in that aspect. And he's talked with me about how like the Scorch Plague is a lot like the like ants getting that fungus that kind of overtakes them, where
it takes over their minds.
And they get that kind of hive mentality. And it's interesting now in the game, they've alluded to the fact that they're kind of like still in there a little bit, just in some of their interactions.
Right.
But they are mainly controlled by this hive mind itself. And so it's like, I'm curious if there will be like, if they will cure it, you know?
There'll be people who come back from it and somehow regain their humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really dark place to be like trapped inside your own body and have your mind be kind of controlled by somebody else. And I think you can hear it a little bit in the dialogue you hear of them, because sometimes they'll say things like, don't they talk about how they're in pain? Or they mutter to themselves things, and then they go, get all upset when they see you. But yeah, there's something else going on with that.
I do know that my favorite dialogue happened in the Wayward Quest when you're trying to get the robot body for I forgot the name of the robot, but you walk in there and there's this whole dialogue tree where this robot has not seen that works in. It's a robot that works in a robot shop, and he's not seen anybody for years.
Yes.
And you walk in there and there's
he thinks you're a ghost.
Like, oh, you're a ghost. And you can be like, oh, I'm not a ghost. But you can also be like, which is what I did. You can go on a whole tangent where you're like, I'm the spirit here.
Yes.
You get the robot.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, so having tried both, if you can either go and say you're a ghost, or you can say that you're not a ghost. If you say you're not a ghost, he doesn't believe you.
Well, that's funny.
It's good. It's good both ways. And he's like, he says something like, okay, like I'm going to believe a spirit or something like that. And it's like, oh, that's great. He just makes up his mind on his own.
I think exploiting gullible people is like one of my favorite things to do in a video game with social interaction.
So going back to the other poll I put up before I forget and we move on to other stuff. So I wanted to find out what people thought was the best part of the Wastelanders expansion, and I got 63 votes, and it's fairly evenly split. So I have 4 different options here: dialogue and voice acting, characters, story and quests, or new content and the end game stuff. And it's 22%, 22%, 30%, 25% point with digits after them. So the 2 lowest are split between dialogue and voice acting and characters as the best, but still got 22% each. The next highest is new content and endgame, and the highest with 30%, which is only a little bit higher than the others, is story and quests. So I think what that says is that they're knocking it out of the park in all of these different ways, that people like everything, and it's a hard decision.
Yeah, what have you guys thought about the new dialogue system?
I am glad that it's back. I would prefer a little bit. I think we're offered the illusion of choice, but like Tom mentioned earlier, you kind of end up at the same place. I would love to see more of that, more divergent paths based on how much of a wasteland dickhead that you are.
Yeah.
Like if that has real consequences and you kind of immediately alienate yourself and you have to find a new way of getting to the end goal.
Yeah, but I think it does a better job where in the last game it was kind of like at the end of the day you're a hero to somebody. Like you can play through this game and get to the same place, but I mean you can be like, everyone can think you're an asshole at the end of it.
Right.
like the character's perception of you can be very different and you can still get through everything. But I mean, it would be hard to do it in an online game where like there were like hard locks if you chose something else. And I think having a divergent story path you would need to make more of that instancing. And I mean, you would need to like change how locations react. I feel like that would be rather hard.
It becomes exponentially more difficult in a multiplayer game than it does in a single player. But I think it's probably going to take more testing on our part, playing a complete contrary position to what we played before, in order to just see the different sides and what things come back around and what things don't.
I would like to say that this is probably the best dialogue system of any Fallout game. That's just my personal opinion. You have way more control over what your character says, as well as like so many skill checks for so many different ways to take a conversation and to do things. And it's not always like this skill check means you're going to get a good thing or you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
It like sometimes it's better to like think about what you're saying rather than trying to like up your, get your strength and always choose the strength option. Sometimes it's like, no, I really just want to help this person rather than trying to extort them for more money.
I was also surprised that the numbers went as high as they do. Like the highest number I've seen for a skill check so far is 12, and I was kind of expecting it to top out around 10. But I was like, wow, they really do, like if you min-max a character a lot in one thing, then you still get even more dialogue options.
I'm curious if the unyielding armor gives you like a lot of stats if you run a bloody build, and those affect your dialogue options. I'm curious if they're going to keep with that, because that kind of opened up access to literally every dialogue option for me in the game. And oftentimes it was, it's fun to have like this character that has all these different ways to progress through conversations, but I'm curious if they'll keep with that or if they'll just lock it to what perks you have. Perk points you have.
Yeah, my favorite interaction with that particular system is when you go back to the mountainside bed and breakfast where you were before, where you pick up the last overseer tape, and it's just kind of a cool area in the middle part of the map to the south. You go back, and now there's a proper bed and breakfast there. As you're talking to the new proprietors, you have the option to check in. There's also a skill check there. If you have high enough perception, you can detect that something's wrong. And there's two ways that you can play this. Either you can check yourself into a room for the night, which I did, or you can do the skill check and see what happens. If you decide to go to sleep, you go upstairs to your room, you lay down, you go to sleep, and it immediately starts this triggered event where you start to hear voices next door from some hungry cannibals. And as you're listening and sleeping, you can hear them planning on coming in and eating you. And at that point, you can do a few different things. If you get up and you have the cannibal perk yourself, you can immediately counter and say that you're hungry, in which case you can chase them down and eat them yourself. You can also kill them at that point. Or going back to earlier, if you pass that skill check, you can skip all of that. You go downstairs and you find them in the basement. There is a chainsaw down there, one of the few that you can grab in the game. And if you look on the wall, you'll also notice the symbol for the gourmands. So they made a return to Appalachia.
I experienced that event, and I thought it was great when like you're sitting in the room and they're like, all right, we're going to go in.
Yeah, that was
3. And then they come in, and then I killed them and then ate them because I was also a cannibal. And I feel like that was pretty like justice was served. I'm the good cannibal.
Was served?
There
should have been a Steam achievement for that, like tables turned or something.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's really good.
Been a good one.
Let's talk about moving on from dialogue here. Some of the new random events, and I kind of want to include some of the rebuilt locations into them. What kind of experiences have you all had with those? Like the new like you're just going along and something just happens, that kind of stuff.
I've been fast traveling through a lot of it because I just wanted to get to the next story beat because I already went through it once and then wanted to go through with another character. So I've probably missed a number of the things that just show up on their own. Side note, I did finally run into a vengeful Mothman for the first time after, however many 100 hours playing the game. But I don't think that's new.
I love the Mothman. I mean, obviously. Why am I even... It's like an assumed fact at this point. Why I even say it?
In breaking news, water is wet. Yes. And Dave likes the Mothman.
As I'm, again, wearing a Mothman shirt today. You look in my closet, I'm essentially like Batman's biggest fan and have all the Batman shirts, except instead of Batman, it's Mothman.
The new recent sightings that popped up, that actually is Dave. He's just in costume.
I actually I've
righting
had
wrongs, solving mysteries. One day he'll jump home.
No lie, we have looked at how to make mechanical wings. And I'm not kidding you when I say that.
You consulted the early work of Leonardo da Vinci?
Yes. We got the old drawings back out, and we were like, this man has 2 arms and 2 legs and an extra pair of both.
Quickly, the popsicle sticks and paper mache. I must to the skies.
Mod Podge that baby.
We're gonna see you on the news. Man jumps off cliff expecting to fly.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Ken? What kind of events have you run into, or interesting locations have you kind of seen?
So I have a good one. I remembered from game days that we were teased that we want to visit the Mothman cultist shrines now scattered around the map a few times a day because something special happens there. So with our group, we donned our ritual gear and we had a field trip around the map one night to do some stealthy kind of covert operations into getting into the cultists to some small degree of success. Most of us ended up triggering them, but eventually we quietly and stealthily watched them. And then around, I don't know, sometime in the night, the Mothman actually showed up, and he's completely passive. So if you watch from a distance, they'll actually approach him and pray to him and curry favor, possibly bring him bulbs.
Which do you know which Mothman it was?
I can't remember which one. It had
the wise one.
I think it had green eyes. I think is the one that we had.
I think that's the wise one.
I think
wise one is purple.
Oh, purple.
The green one is oh Jesus, I forgot. I should know this. Everyone's disappointed in me now. Never mind.
But I can't remember. I know it had green eyes, but the variant I couldn't remember what it was. But if you kill the cultists, it'll just stand there passive, and you can't kill it. It's invulnerable. It's just kind of a fun...
The glowing Mothman. It's the glowing one.
The impervious Mothman.
The immortal Mothman.
It is the immortal Mothman.
No, I just looked it up. It's the glowing Mothman.
Yep, that must be it.
Yep.
With the green eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that I thought was kind of a cool thing. It was also kind of a neat field trip to kind of sneak up, and the chanting and some of the stuff that they say is really interesting. There are a few different holotapes that you want to hop around to find. There are different chapters as far as summoning him and building shrines to him, and it's a whole series of sermons. It's kind of how to be a cultist for dummies. So we're in the process of collecting all the tapes.
I like that. I have my theory that I've had since really day one is all of the depictions of Mothman are different. Like the statue in the game, the signs and stuff for him aren't the exact depictions as you see Mothman out in the world. So I think there's like a real Mothman. Like there's many Mothmen, but there's only one Mothman, and that's the one that does all of the predictions and does the regular Mothman business instead of all that disappearing and using some sonar attacks.
I feel like he's out there kind of waiting in the shadows in a business suit and a trilby.
And then there's okay, well then what if you got this Jeff Lane fellow? It's what happened to him? As far as so I've done a few random events and different stuff, but they've gone back and have redone locations, and you may not notice it. I mean, unless you've played the game a lot. But one of the things, they redid Charleston, which is where I'm from, to make it look more like Charleston, which is kind of interesting. Just from and it's not even they put more buildings in. They realign things and change some of the destruction to kind of add in more of the neighborhood where I live, more of a downtown area, and more of the streets that align with the Capitol. And the Capitol's how it's laid out has even been changed to more reflect how it is in the real world. Which that's where my camp is. So that was the first place I kind of saw, and I was like, holy crap, they've really gone back and have kind of aligned things for how they want it. That was kind of the clue that I'm okay, I'm playing a different game now. I'm playing kind of an evolved, we've all been playing Charmander, but now we're playing, Charizard at this point,
So I wonder, I mean, it seems like such a I mean, a polish type thing, unless they were absolutely needing to adjust things anyway to fit more locations, or you know, it seems like they must have more reasons than just, hey, we want this to match reality better.
But it's weird because that's how, like, that was the weird part for me, because I had, like, you know, people from the town, sometimes they'll ask me, they'll be like, because that don't play games, they'll be like, hey, I want to see that game with West Virginia in it. So I pull it up and I'm like, oh, you know, because most people I know live in Charleston. I'm like, here's this, here's that. And they're like, oh, okay, they don't have this. It kind of looks like that. Now it's weird to have it evolve into a more like true to location, because everything is pretty true to, like, I mean, outside of like where it is on the map, the actual locations themselves, like the ones that are existing in the real world. Obviously, we do not have Watoga, the city of dreams and technology, but for a lot of the other stuff, it's much like that. That was kind of the first thing that I was really impressed with, was how not only are there new locations, the locations that they had before, even like not static, obviously not now, areas that were pretty much laid out like for beginners, for like quest lines, have been slightly changed and moved around, which is pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, really interesting.
Let's get into companions. Has anybody gotten any companions in the game, and what has kind of been your experience with those?
Nope, I'm not that far along yet.
Well, I got, let's see, I found Beckett. I've found you called him Grandpa Wes Johnson.
Yeah, I made show notes for this for the show, and I couldn't remember the names of the companions that you could get, so I wrote in Spaceship Girl, Bartender Boy, Six String Tickler, Raider Punk, and Wes Johnson as Grandpa. Yeah,
I got the Wandering Musician. I got her
Six String Plucker.
Yeah,
Tickler.
That's her. I got the Raider Punk and Grandpa, and Beckett is the one that I have active, so I'm finishing all his first before I move on to the other ones. But I still haven't found the astronaut.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't found any. I don't even know how companions work yet.
So I managed to get them all, and I've done both of the both Spaceship Girl and Bartender Boy's particular quests. But I made up a little studio for Raider Punk in the camp. He's probably my favorite out of them. I feel like there's some connection there between me and him, where he's like, oh, I've got this radio show and I'm connected to the cryptid network and I'm doing all this stuff, and we gotta talk about all the weird cryptids. And I'm curious if
he's the perfect companion for you.
Yeah, I'm curious, and he makes like little things, like he makes remarks about how he's like lived in northern West Virginia and he has family in West Virginia. There's some similarities there, but I'm curious how these other companions are going to kind of evolve over time. So far, my experience with them has been kind of interesting, just from going around to other people's camps and seeing what people have done. Particularly, a lot of people have added Beckett into their bars that had already existed, and that feels more real to it, as well as like really heavy science areas. They've added the Commander Donahue, which is as I call her, Spaceship Girl, into these very like technologically heavy areas. And so I'm curious, like, they've almost become like, instead of just like, oh, they exist in this camp, they become like part of their camp. Like, people have made rooms for them, and I think that's really interesting to me, and I'm curious how that's going to evolve, especially with the almost pretty much confirmed adding in of pets into the game.
You know what they need to do is they need to release a bunch of cards you can collect to unlock new companions in the game. And
gotta catch them all, sleep with NPCs.
And then they've got to let you not only build your camp, but like cultivate the land around it. And, you know, eventually you end up on an island with a bunch of cute little animal characters. I think that would sell really well.
It's almost, I mean, that's the whole That's the whole shtick for Pokemon, is that, like, you know, it starts, the first game is the last game, and it's been like steady extinction of these animals over time. Anyways, I've really enjoyed kind of having an extra bit in camp. One thing, well, never mind. Let's talk about as I go along here. Let's talk about the new events. Have either of you tried the new events in the game, which are Radiation Rumble and Riding Shotgun?
I have done them both.
Nope, still not there either.
So Ken, you're ahead of me because I have not completed Radiation Rumble. I have found that to be very hard. So what has been kind of your experience with both of those?
T is for teamwork. I find that doing it with a team of us, it's super successful because we'll designate a few people who have high radiation resistance as runners, and then the rest of us will just kind of protect everybody else. So we'll have people stationed in the front entryway along the 2 hallways, and then in the back part. And doing that has been super effective.
So my big thing is, like, I will go and join that event and wait for any event that I join, I generally wait for people to show up. But you kind of need to be over level 50 and like have a game plan when you're doing Radiation Rumble. And it seems like it's almost catered towards people that are in a group that are on mic, and it's like, this event is something that would work way better if you can have very open communication with people.
Yeah, I agree. It's like there are 2 other events kind of like that. One is encrypted, which for the most part, I don't know why people still waste ammo on the imposter sheep squatch when he's vulnerable. And people, like, nobody bothers to activate the pylons. Really, you just want to scream, somebody activate the pylons. The other one is Arctos, where you kind of have to have people split up and have a game plan to take each one of those areas and fill the feeders, as opposed to just kind of running around willy-nilly.
Right. I could do that one when it released because everybody kind of was learning it and was active in that. But now I haven't managed to complete it correctly, or if I've like traveled to the event, waited around, see if it's kind of like, you know, wait around, see if people show up, and I'm just kind of kicking my legs, you know, in the curb and going, well, I guess nobody's coming to my birthday party, and then we go ahead and leave. My favorite event.
If any fans are listening, Dave needs a team. Dave needs the A team.
I need a team for the weird hours that I will play this game because I do not keep a regular schedule with when that may happen. Sometimes it's like, all right, it's 5 a.m. I'm up and going. I'm not doing anything this morning, so I'm gonna go play a little bit of Fallout. And sometimes it's like, you know, most of the time I'm in bed by 11. Anyways, enough about my personal schedule. Let's talk about some Riding Shotgun, which is my favorite, I think, event in the game. First of all, it introduces you to that new faction, the Blue Ridge Caravan. Each time you do the quest, you get a different set of people from the caravan, and they have dialogue and banter between them that's different for the most part. After like, you eventually see it all, but for most consecutive times you do it, like the first, second, third time, you're gonna get a different kind of dialogue between these characters, and it almost adds to their mystique as like they start existing as like actual characters in your head. And then not only are you doing the event is where you like protect a Brahmin all the way through the Brahmin pack all the way through a tunnel. You also have to, if you want to, you can get these extra supplies, which also don't count towards your chances of your reward rolls if you're looking for Blue Ridge Caravan plans. They only affect caps at the end of it. But I always do it because, you know, I stand myself as an upstanding member of the Blue Ridge Caravan. One of the interesting things, I guess, lore-wise, is the Blue Ridge Caravan not only opens up a new event, it kind of opens up a potential future for maybe places that we would be going or people that we would be interacting with, because everybody kind of wants more with them, particularly after doing this event and kind of getting their personalities. And the Blue Ridge Parkway is like a real parkway in the like Virginia that goes through the Appalachian Mountains. And it goes pretty much from like south of DC, which, I mean, that's people that live in south of DC, it's a very, very large area. Pretty much down to North Carolina, Tennessee, in that area. It's one of the places that I had to study in college. It's funny, all of this like college education is finally going to something fun like video games. So it's interesting to see if it has any connection to DC in the future, and what kind of content. There's a few nods across the game that I think we're going to get to here in a bit of where it could go. And the Blue Ridge Caravan is one of those. I think they're my favorite faction that they've introduced. We talked a little bit about the Cult of Mothman, and then they've added in are they called Blood Raiders? Blood Eagles? Blood Eagles.
Blood Eagles.
And I wonder if they're going to add in the Crypt Crows. And that way you got the Bloods and the Crows.
I see what you did there. Oh.
I just keep thinking weird sounds.
So what all have you seen of the end game itself? Like, you all aren't there yet for the gold bullion system, and kind of the grind for reputation. What all have you read anything of interest or seen anything or have any opinions before you've even started that on that kind of system?
I do. Well, I've got it from a community perspective. So once you complete the vault raid, kind of the end game then is then grinding for more rep with the faction, or grinding for bullion if you want to really start crafting the armor. We had a couple of different problems that popped up that they dealt with. One was people duping and somehow hacking, getting access to the plans. So there was a ban wave. They took that out of the equation. A lot of the community was complaining about, one, the plans are character locked. So when you take the time to go through this grind, which will take you quite a while if you want all of the plans, and you need all of the plans, it's going to take you quite a while to kind of grind them through because you can only get so much gold per day, so it's kind of limited there. So you kind of have to put the effort in. And then once you've done that on one character, you can't pass it to another. They also can't be dropped or traded, so you have to follow through on it if you want all the plans. Because of that, it's the first time they've done anything like that. The community was kind of in a huffle about it. The question came up by Juice Edit, ironically enough. He'd asked a question about the gold rate being adjusted, and that's something that they don't want to do, partly because Bethesda is trying to slow things down. Their response essentially was to get people to take the time to go through, keep playing the game to work towards a goal, as opposed to be able to power through it and get all of the plans quickly. I think their intent was to try and slow people down from doing the game too quickly, and then hungry for what's next when they've put all of this time into creating Wastelanders and now it's starting over again. I'm not sure if that was entirely effective because people kind of did it anyway, and some people just aren't bothering working through the plans. So I guess we'll see how that plays out.
From my perspective, oftentimes I don't have, like, when I log on, like, I don't have enough time to, let's say, like, go through, do a nuclear silo, go through, launch it at a Scorched Beast, be able to craft, like, go and do gardening while you're at it, which I call it extreme gardening. When you go in the nuke zone, you start, like, getting your flux and stuff.
It's a good name for it.
Hardcore gardening. Let's get out our shovels. So it's been really nice. And this game is kind of my quote unquote like online game that I obviously follow and go through. And so to me, this bullion system, which I love saying bullion, bullion. It's like, did they put it in the soup? So one of my favorite things is this do system, because it allows me to log on and for 30 minutes be able to work towards something like concrete. Like I'm always kind of on that grind of it, It doesn't take away from the experience because generally I have like a general route that I'll go and run while I'm still trying to check out most of the new. I'm trying to revisit every location in the game to see what's changed and kind of re-experience it a little bit. But for me, I've managed to what have I bought? I bought the Secret Service armor and jetpack, which is plenty of fun. You've heard me talk about that. I'm close to getting ally with the Raiders, and that's when you get the Gauss Gatling gun, which automatically is automatic. Just that's my joke.
It's automatically automatic.
But it also, the more you fire it, the more damage it does, and it also affects from explosive perks. So it's kind of like it has a furious effect and an explosive effect. Plus, if you roll a good one, you can have three other legendary effects with it. So I'm looking forward to getting that and the ammo crafting machine. That's kind of high on my list of things that I want to go for.
That reminds me of something super important that I was cautioned about when I first got started. Since the purveyor has moved from the train station now to the Rusty Pick, as much script as you can, start converting it to modules. You're going to need the modules if you're going to want to craft that stuff. So I've been converting all of the script as opposed to normally I'd try and get a legendary drop from her. I've just been focusing on getting modules instead.
Frankly, that's what I've been doing because, like, if you've been playing this game and you have a build and your odds of getting, because you're rolling a few things when you go to the purveyor. You're rolling, first of all, what kind of weapon you're going to get. Not only that, you're rolling what kind of legendary effects you're going to have. Whereas if you just buy a legendary module, you go to your workbench, you know exactly the item that you're rolling. But then it's a rank of you're rolling how many stars it has plus what effects. To me, that seems better, especially if you're like trying to work up and build a perfect set. Like you're gonna continue rolling, and your best thing that you have, you're kind of gonna keep. And you're gonna be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna use. So like right now, I only have a 2-star unyielding, like Secret Service chest. And I'm like, oh, that's good enough. I don't really need a 3-star right now. I can roll that whenever I want. And almost going into the purveyor and rolling those random legendaries hasn't been as lucrative.
Definitely not.
as finding them out in the wild. And now it's like, okay, now that I'm kind of building plans and I've already kind of have a character set up, it's most legendaries that I find, I'm just like throwing in my, like, with this game, you kind of like get your script up really high. You have these legendary modules. And I'm mostly just throwing them in my vending machine. I've made a lot of money. I've made the most money in this game.
Made all the money.
And I've been following my own practices and advice just of I don't price anything above 3,000 caps, and it just gets bought up. It's like, and I'm talking about like, there's some like good stuff. Like there's some stuff that probably I could sell for a lot more, but I just don't care enough to like go through the trouble of getting mules and doing all the different stuff. So with this new grinding system, it's kind of made other weapons and other things, even if you already have a good roll, kind of pointless to grind for unless it's like the new shiny one, you know? I'm all about that new shiny stuff.
Yeah, I think at this point I'm at max caps on both of my characters, and I've got nothing to spend it on. A lot of people, especially on PC, took down their vending machines because they haven't still figured out what's going on with the stash glitch that's going on. So I've been sitting on all these caps that I can't spend on anything.
So before we talk about the future, I kind of want to get everyone's kind of a discussion question kind of rolling that I think is the question that a lot of internet personalities as well as news outlets have kind of been asking themselves from people that have been with this game from day one. Do you think that Wastelanders has quote unquote saved Fallout 76?
Go ahead.
I guess that depends on your perspective. I've enjoyed this game from the beginning a great deal, but my experience hasn't been everyone's. I think it's incredibly encouraging that the Steam reviews for the game are exceptionally glowing in a way that the original launch of the game was not. a lot of people who, even vloggers, YouTubers, who bailed on the game quickly or wouldn't even touch it, have now picked it up and have been playing it. That being said, a lot of them are now shifting their focus to other games because, like a lot of people did, they powered through everything too quickly. So the week that it launched, we were getting, I counted between 30 to 40,000 viewers on Twitch, as an example, for people who were watching 76 there. Now that's down to like 1,000 to 3,000 or so. Sometimes it's a little higher than that on the weekends. I think it's a great start, and it gives a roadmap for the future. When we get that roadmap, we'll have kind of an idea of where the game is going. But I think they finally cracked the secret sauce about what everybody wants, because this really ticked off a lot of boxes, even for people who played the first year game.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with saving this game, quote unquote, saving the game, was getting people's confidence back in the team that's behind this and Bethesda in general, and people trusting that they're going to be doing their best to be listening to people and putting out good content. And I think for the most part they've done well. I mean, in a lot of different ways, the dialogue system, having people in the environment, even just some of these fundamental changes, and delaying it to polish it a certain amount. And it's not without its problems still, but I think that they are showing that they said they were committed. They're showing that they're committed, and they're moving forward with that. And I think that gets rid of a lot of the fear that people had of them just putting out a product that wasn't going to work very well and then just kind of letting it be crappy.
I think that a lot of the people maybe that finished it too quick, I think, fail to understand what this update is. So not only is it new quests, new different things, they have completely redone how content works in the game, just through dialogue. Not only that, through reputation with factions. They've laid down these almost foundational blocks that have elevated the game, I think, to put it in a place where they can just start growing it. They can, I mean, you know, and I don't run a video game studio or know anything about it, but I'd imagine that instead of working on foundational elements, you can focus more on not only polish, but I mean, you can just have writers start writing quests. And it's like, you already have a dialogue system set up. You already know how that works. You've already got these reputation systems. And so to me, it's, you know, in comparison to revamping a dialogue system and creating all this stuff from scratch, would seem a lot easier to add in more factions like Brotherhood of Steel, like all of these different things that people want, add in more quests at a quicker rate. And not saying that this is going to be like everything. Content takes time, but think
yeah, you're setting the foundation for that,
right? And right. I think that now you're getting to I think you've gotten to a place where they want to build Fallout, and they're not making another Fallout for years and years and years. They've got to do Starfield and Elder Scrolls next, but they have laid this foundation so that they can continue to tell Fallout stories and have that fan base kind of playing and engaged in a game. And I think that's what they really wanted from, I mean, from when 76 released, was to have this kind of world where the Fallout fans and people that play the game can kind of get content that they're making at a quicker rate than just having your numbered releases as you go along. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be a Fallout 5, but I mean, right now, I mean, if you look at the gap from Skyrim,
it's a decade off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
From Skyrim to the next one, Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
You've had Elder Scrolls Online fill that gap of saying, okay, we want to continue telling Elder Scrolls stories, but we also want to work on these different things. And so, I mean, some of those quests and stories have won like writing awards, like that they've done in ESO. So it seems like that now they have this foundation with this update. Frankly, it's right now it's my favorite Fallout game. I think that you have
you have the most amount of people in this game focusing on what it's like to rebuild after an apocalypse, like what everybody is thinking. All of the factions make sense to me. Like the raiders are the best raiders, first of all, in a Fallout game. They're not.
Yep.
They're not villains. They are, I guess, we can kind of get into a discussion about that after this, but you have all of these different elements that are kind of firing on all cylinders, that are hitting these baselines that I think are really going to explode into what the game could be. So for me, it's not like I love Fallout 76 as it existed in the beginning, but I think this really allows a platform for Bethesda to access its widest audience possible.
Well, it's also, you can tell so much bigger stories and bridge the gap with fans of the original games who were looking for more of a traditional experience. At the Reddit AMA that we had a few weeks back, they teased that the Brotherhood is keeping an eye very closely on Appalachia, which is a tease to indicate that at some point we could see the Brotherhood return, maybe something with the Enclave. I think bringing back some of those are the two most popular factions that have really been in the games that people just love so much. So if there was a way that they could be brought in and have it make sense, I think that would be amazing for people to want to play. Being able to go to different places and expand the landmass is something else that would be amazing. To go back to DC or even Philadelphia, which isn't too far off, would allow for some really awesome storytelling.
Yeah. Hey, side note, I actually just tackled the Brotherhood in 76 in the most recent Fallout Lorecast.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of potential for bringing that story around again, because they've set a foundation for how the Brotherhood was there and what happened.
Right.
And there's lots of different directions you can go with that.
So what kind of directions do you all see or think can happen? And that could be just based off of what you want or some in-game things that they've said. Not even in-game, but even in the AMA. What kind of things do you think that they're going to get to or want to get to within the current situation?
Well, I think Ken is absolutely right and they've almost basically said that the Brotherhood is going to return. It'll be interesting to see how that occurs and what role they play. I think that it would be it may be really, really interesting to me if they're going to commit to this game being a thing that evolves and year after year is different, for us to eventually solve the Scorched Plague altogether, or like we mentioned in the earlier in the show, have a cure. And it would be amazing if, say, 4 or 5 years from now, Scorch Beasts and Scorch aren't even in the environment at all. They're gone. So you can say, I remember when we fought the Scorched Plague, and now they're gone. And there's some other big bad, and there's some other thing going on that we have to deal with, but and maybe there's corpses of the Scorched around, but they're now just, part of the history of the place. I think that would be really cool.
That would be amazing. And people, early on, some of the theories about what Wastelanders was going to be, people thought that over time, our dropping nukes would seal the fissures. And then eventually with Wastelanders, we will seal the Fisher Prime finally, and it would be safe for people to return. We didn't get that, but I think it's interesting that so many people thought that made sense. That I think it would, like you said, make sense for that to happen eventually, for us to cure the plague and move on to the next thing.
Yeah. I want to see world-changing events that, Dave talked about. They changed the map. It doesn't look exactly the same. And that's one little example. Or the idea that, there were no NPCs. To have that experience, you can't have that experience now because there are NPCs. And to be able to say, I was there when, is kind of a really cool thing, because it's a real world thing. We talk about like, oh yeah, I was there when I saw that band on tour and there were only 50 people in the audience, but now they're pulling in, tens of thousands of people in every show. You can't go back and have that 50 people in the audience experience. Either you were there or you weren't. And I think that's a really cool thing to have in a video game because it's something that's very rare.
I think for the next year, I think they're going to stick. I mean, throughout 2020, I think they're going to stick with the map that they have, and kind of build stories off of that rather than going out to other. Like they're could revamp locations within the map, but like rather than going out to DC or, you know, I don't know, Vegas.
You know, if they do follow a similar ESO type schedule, then they're going to make it'll be like a bi-yearly process. I don't know if that's the right phrase. So you'll have a year of expanding the content within what's in already there, and then maybe a year of making everything broader or wider. So adding a new zone, adding an actual purchasable expansion that adds content that wouldn't be part of the main one, but still leaving the main one available for everyone to play. And you don't necessarily need the new content, but you could go play it, you know, or I don't know. They could take this a lot of different ways, but you could have a complete other zone that tells other stories without taking away from anything that's happening in the current zone.
Right, or you can modify. I mean, like for example, I was just thinking about Vegas, and I was like, well, how would they be able to do something like that? And I'm like, well, there's a casino in the Greenbrier, like in real life, and then so it's like, okay, well, what if they added like an extra floor where it was like, oh, this is the casino, and we're adding in like poker tables, and we're adding in like slot machines, and it's all going to connect to the booth. Like, you can start seeing how. It's very easy to go off the foundation that they've laid with this update.
I would love I loved that in New Vegas, playing card games and the slot machines. I would love to see that in here as something fun to do. Like,
it could be social.
Someone else, I can't remember. It was in our Discord. They said, wouldn't it be amazing if the board games that we pick up around Appalachia had a playable variant where you could actually sit around and play with friends in game? In the same way that you get these Pip-Boy games, it would be awesome to sit down with your friends and play a board game in game. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So reading the AMA, it seems like that there's two things that they have kind of alluded to that they want to do. The first being the Mothman cult. I think that they want to do more with that. And
everybody is asking, yeah.
People want to join the Mothman cult.
Yeah, I do.
I would join. That would be my number one faction. Like in real life, if they were like, "Oh, we're gonna make a cult for Mothman," I'm like, you know what? Just sign me up. Just take me down. The other thing is that they have said, and I think the quote is that the Brotherhood of Steel has been watching Appalachia very closely, and so it all but confirms that the Brotherhood of Steel, in some form or fashion, will be returning to the world of Fallout 76. One of the interesting theories that I think we can all talk about is in the settlers camp, there's this character named Samuel who is, quote, from a vault and wears vault tech gear, but doesn't have a pit boy, but is really into vaults. And there's a theory running around that he could be a spy for certain factions. The main ones being the Brotherhood or the Enclave. Both of those I've heard and read online. And so there's kind of these places that you can kind of pick up and tell that there's something going on, something is happening within the game. There's a full post up for the AMA that you can go and kind of read and see what they're thinking about. See some of their thoughts on what I think they're calling it One Wasteland, which is their big overhaul for the balances to everything, which sounds interesting. But other than that, I think that wraps up of our discussion. So, I mean, now would be a good time if we wanted to get out the old classic Abraxo box.
Yeah, I already got them right here. I'm stacking them up. How many tall are we going today?
I wouldn't exactly say that we're building it tall. I would say that more
girth.
You know what?
Wider.
Let's stack them up here and make like a little cave and get inside, because we're gonna dig deep into some weird dark mysteries that have arrived with Wastelanders. Let's crowd into this little cave here.
Are we all gonna fit in there?
There's room. Come on.
All right.
We have to break social distancing guidelines in order to do this. I'm just letting you know.
All right.
It's
this is a
okay.
little uncomfortable, but
I have
go
a
ahead.
piece of paper wrapped around my face. I'm fine.
All right. I think we're good.
Now that we're here, I
Yeah.
believe, Chin, you have been following this mystery more closely, I think, than any of us. What exactly has been happening, man?
Well, let me tell you, it's been quite the mystery. I first got wind of it when Juicehead had shared that the Data Miners Discord, the official one, or the unofficial official one, that's been running behind the scenes, that works from part to time with Bethesda on solving problems, had been cracking a unique mystery. To the slight southwest of Spruce Knob has appeared a set of guidestones, standing stones that look almost similar to the ones that you'd see around rings over in the UK. So kind of like Stonehenge. They're a little more flat. They're not as thick. But the unusual thing, if you're not paying attention, is they have some kind of random designs on them. And if you didn't pay too much attention, you wouldn't realize what they were. When I found out that there was this investigation into these guidestones, Juice had invited in publicly for the first time. They opened it up to the public and started allowing people in because they were trying to crack this mystery. And that's where things got really weird and interesting, where they had linguists. There was an army codebreaker, ex-military in there. They had a whole variety of people working with waveforms and Photoshop, possibly some beads and a spirit ball. It was a very complex undertaking, but it got to a dead end. What they found out is that the etching on the guidestones is part of a single image that's broken up between the stones. So if you assemble them, it looks like something. The theory is that it's a map, but it's hard to tell what the map goes to. If it aligns to something on the surface, other people think that it's an underground map. Other people think that it's a dimensional map where we're looking at things from a different perspective. That has something to do with Cthulhu mythos or aliens, or there's a variety of different theories. What the data miners have determined is there are pieces of a quest that you can start to uncover where there are references to the Atlas Observatory, which has been in the game since the beginning, but hasn't had a purpose. If you go there and explore it, you find out that the Atlas was a device that was being constructed with military contracting money that is an atmospheric terraforming device. So it's not so much a telescope as it is a device that would manipulate the weather. When they started building it, they were able to get it semi-successful locally to affect local weather before, ironically enough, on the eve of the Great War, it was mysteriously shut down. The government canceled everything and wasn't going to do anything more with it. They were going to use it as a weapon. So everything was shut down. After the bombs dropped, the lead scientist that had been developing it had realized that this device could restart civilization. He would be able to use it to terraform the planet, get rid of the radiation, and restart the life cycle in some areas that were hit harder. He got it to the point where he almost completely repaired the device before he died of unnatural causes, or he was shot or killed or eaten or something. You find his body, but you don't really find out what happened after that. There are locked terminals, and there are some spots there with a module that you can insert something into that looks a lot like the module that you install that you get from Modus that reconnects you to the Kovac Muldoon platform. There's a receptacle like that on the outside of the building. So the theory is that this map is the start of a quest that will tie to the investigator's cabin, that will tie to Atlas, and you will be able to contact something in space. At this point in time, Mothership Zeta, which you ran into in Fallout 3 from the DLC, is still up there observing.
Mm-hmm.
So they think that this is part of a quest where you can make contact with aliens. Based on the data that's in the files, it looks like you can make two decisions. Either you can issue a warm greeting, or you can issue a threat. And based on that, it's going to trigger a series of events. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I would love to see, as part of a quest, you get this thing fired up, because I think it would look ridiculously cool. So if you have to use it as a weapon to kill something or take something down.
It's interesting to kind of see it evolve to this level with it being on these guidestones and with it being connected to that quest through some of what the data miners have found. Because, I mean, last year, probably around this time, there was I think it was Rick McVick from that Fallout show was talking about it, and he had started up on the We Just Love Games Discord, kind of this separate channel where we were talking about the Horse Creek petroglyphs, which are a real thing in real life, but also is mentioned in Fallout, and that's when we kind of ran across these images that were green with black lines, and they made out these symbols, and we were like individually piecing them together to try to make the best map that we could and shifting them a certain way, and it wouldn't line up. And that was before they even put the guidestones in the game. And then once they did that, it was like this whole thing kind of exploded out into what it is now, which is kind of almost like an in-game, almost ARG. One of the things to remember when you're playing an ARG or something, like you're going into talking about Mount Chiliad, or you're talking about these other things, like your expectations are most certainly, if you're following it really closely, your expectations are most certainly going to be dashed. Just part of that, part of the game of that, because obviously people hype up something enough that they can be quite disappointed when it's something that maybe, obviously you start drawing connections and you're thinking that this thing connects to everything, when really it only connects to maybe like two things that you had thought about, and it's quote unquote disappointing. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that. I think they're going to let that sit for a while. I don't think we're going to hear anything more about it for a good bit.
You know what would be fascinating in a way is it would be interesting, because the game itself is a dynamic entity. I think they're playing with different concepts to see what sticks. But imagine if they took the threads of a puzzle and kind of threw it out there to see what we would make of it before they decided what to do with it fully.
Mm-hmm. Or just kind of drop them in ever so slightly without ever announcing them.
Yeah, which historically they have done with some of the previous updates. You get these little sneak peeks into what's coming next.
Yeah. And then, in fact, it might even be fun to roll out some sort of major event without saying that it's coming until it occurs, and then letting us find it, and then once someone reports on it, say, hey, this is a thing. Go check it out. So-and-so discovered it, and let it be audience generated originally rather than hyped by the company first.
Yeah,
and they're used to doing that because they did that with the Grafton Pawn Shop as kind of the teaser for Wastelanders.
Yep.
Where they didn't say anything, and they were like, somebody just found, they were like, I can go in this pawn shop and there's like some weird notes in here, and then it takes you on the quest to, and I'm not, I did it before, so I'm not sure if you have to do that again for the main class. I think you have to do it again for the main quest for Wastelanders to figure out the code to get into the vault. But
it creates a very organic experience with people wanting to constantly be logging back in because they might be the one who discovers something that nobody else saw before.
Yeah, like when this first broke, I mean, everybody was on there, and people were exploring different regions of the map and taking pictures, and it got the community really active around trying to crack this mystery. And the data miners channel for it was just blowing up. It was impossible to keep up with. I think when Dave got in there, that the chat was moving so fast those first days, it was hard to even see what were legit clues versus complete nonsense.
Yeah. to me, this feels like a more natural end game. I mean, you could be grinding items and fighting the same monsters over and over again, but something like this feels way more natural, again, to the way the real world works. You know, you go back to a location and it's not the exact same as it was when you were there before. And maybe this time there's a note on the counter and you just go, wait, that note wasn't there before. It says a thing and it has coordinates. Then you go to the coordinates and then you tell your friends and you post it online and someone says, hey, they found this thing. And then other people go check it out and they go, hey, this does have a thing. And then you know, collectively figure it out together. And that seems like, to me, I don't really want to grind end gear equipment because that's not why I play these games. But to do something like that and learn some lore from it and have that experience with other people is a lot more engaging, even though it's less mechanically video game driven or traditionally video game mechanically driven type content.
And I remember when they did the Wastelanders, not Wastelanders, the Wild Appalachia update, when they first started it, I mean, they had this whole sheep squatch quest, and at the end of it, you don't see the sheep squatch at the end of it. And over the next weeks, they were like adding more notes and little miscellaneous quests into the game.
Yes.
That led up to them releasing an event where you actually saw the sheep squatch, and you like would even have random events where you would have a bunch of dead super mutants that were just full of quills, and it was just a mysterious quill, and you were like, it's out there. I know it's out there. We just haven't found it yet. And I think that's like really cool when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I remember the night that broke on line where people were like, what's this free range quest that popped up? And they're like, oh my God, it's shooting us. And what's going on here?
Well, what better to do that with than aliens, which are just like, I mean, you've got cryptids, right? And cryptids all seem to be kind of otherworldly and yet somehow naturally part of the environment, maybe not. But then you bring in the aliens and all of a sudden that just blows up.
If I had to speculate, just kind of using background of what Bethesda's like to include in this game and kind of some like, you know, the alternative, as I like to call it, the alternative West Virginia history, dealing with all this investigator's cabin and this dude being hunted, and there was some stuff in the data mine about talking about a black site and connecting up some of the alien stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they added in their version of Indrid Cold, which is, I guess, the antithesis of the Mothman, who is what a lot of like the Men in Black and stuff are based off of. He's kind of this investigator that's been seen throughout most of the world. I thought it was just West Virginia, but I read more into it, and people have had stories about this person around most of the world. And he's considered an alien that investigates and tries to figure out these mysteries, particularly by intimidating and threatening people.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, that's
It's the most effective way.
If you watch the movie The Mothman Prophecies, you mainly are following the story of Indrid Cold rather than actually Mothman himself.
And it's actually the actor is actually Indrid Cold also, who plays that role, which is super good catch.
I'm surprised. You know, he has a pretty high budget. I'm surprised they got him for it. But that would align with aliens and kind of them trying to use some of the real life history, and I mean, video game influences of Indrid Cold. Particularly, probably the most famous one is G-Man from Half-Life. He's very much influenced by the accounts of Indrid Cold, as well as if you played XCOM, they have the Thin Men.
Yeah.
Which look and are very inspired by Indrid Cold as well.
Spooky stuff. I like it. All right.
So we shall see where it all goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for more aliens and cryptid stuff. Keep that stuff coming. I think everybody likes that stuff.
The other thing that had broke early on when people first logged in was going to Seneca Rocks, noticed that there was something unusual on the side of it now. That looked like a scorched beast, but when you get closer, you realize it's not. Crucified and harpooned up there is something that Dave and I think is the Thunderbird.
Yeah, I'm down. A lot of people think it is like a prototype Sword Beast that they had put into the game files, and that may be the case. But I also think it's a Thunderbird because I have a tattoo of a Thunderbird, and in the book American Gods, that's where the Thunderbirds are. They're in West Virginia. So this is my case. Bethesda, if you hear this, please put a Thunderbird in the game. Have me ride it and shoot lightning at my enemies from high.
I want to see one fight a Scorch Beast.
That would be amazing.
Scorch Beast Thunderbird battle.
Bird battle.
They all get all tangled up and then like tumble to the ground and yeah.
Yeah, if they did that in Watoga, I have this. One of my constant pitches is that Robco obviously has their offices there, and they have been working on a prototype, Liberty Prime. And then there's an event where you summon, like you get enough salvage to summon Liberty Prime, and it fights a Scorch Beast, and it's like the best kaiju battle you've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, do it. Can you get in its head and like pilot it? That would be even cooler.
As long as you get belt buckles that give you a special suit. Oh wait, we have the Ranger armor, so I mean, now we just need swords that we can combine to form one big sword and put in a circle.
That's it.
Any Power Rangers fans?
We got it. My son watched a lot of Power Rangers.
Form blazing sword.
That's good.
All right. Well, very cool stuff. Can we get out of the box now? It's a little cramped in here.
Let's get out of the box. I think it's going to collapse on us at a second.
Okay, good. Fresh air. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me again this week. As fun, as usual, very fun and informative. That was the sentence that was trying to get out of my mouth.
It was nice to have everybody here together. This is the first time we haven't had a guest, but so I've enjoyed your company very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, well, now everybody knows what it's like just hanging out with us in the vault every day before people just kind of show up here unexpectedly. So, you got a real glimpse inside the vault this time. Congratulations.
I need to head down to the quartermaster, Mr. Handy, and see if he can requisition me a replacement toothbrush.
So you mean to tell me you got in this cave and you didn't brush your teeth, you monster?
Well, he didn't want to have, like, Pete breath. No offense, Pete, but he did use his toothbrush, so...
I feel like Pete breath would be a 1990s commercial for mint-flavored bubblegum.
Or somebody that made a really nice, like a herbal alternative with peat gravel.
Peat Boss Chews.
We are clearly out of jokes. Thank you for joining me this week. How can people reach out to you?
You can find me on Twitter at Dave Chafinz, and you can find me on Instagram there as well. And I do this other show called Mystery Time Live, and you can find me staying home and practicing safe medical and health practices.
Oh, not safe sex.
Nope.
Sorry. None of that.
No safe sex. Unsafe sex.
Only unsafe.
You can find me on Unsafe Sex. You can find me at Fallout 76 Podcast on all social media platforms and Fallout76podcast.com.
Awesome. And if you're interested in other shows on the Robots Radio Network, similar to this one, go check out robotsradio.net. And you can follow me and my postings about Robots Radio type stuff and my own thoughts on the Robots Radio Twitter at robots_radio. And go check out my other shows on the network, including the Fallout Lorecast and the Elder Scrolls Lorecast and the Cyberpunk Lorecast and the Dungeons & Dragons Lorecast. I've got a bunch of Lorecasts going on lately. So that's where you can get a hold of me.
I heard you like Lorecast, so we put some Lorecasts in your Lorecast.
Yeah, well, you know... so this is fun news. To wrap this up, just yesterday, Fallout Lorecast topped 400,000 plays.
Wow, that's impressive.
Good Lord.
Yeah, 400,000. So I guess people like the show. So yeah,
that's
I kind of went, people must like this Lorecast thing. So I guess I'll try it some other ways too. So far, so good. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. I'm very flattered that you guys keep coming back to hear me, yammer on about lore stuff. So thank you so much for being there. And I'm glad you guys are tuning into this show as well. So thanks for hanging out with all of us. That's kind of the big thing for us. I know three of us enjoy the community and being able to chat with everybody. Oh, and by the way, you can check out the Robots Radio Discord for more community chat about stuff. So
Yes, indeed.
lots of fun ways to plug in. So, all right, guys. Well, until next time, stay safe. Have safe sex, not unsafe sex, or no sex. That's also safe. Or just you do you when it comes to your intimate. Man, this went completely the wrong direction. All
Don't
right,
forget to get your pets spayed or neutered.
spay and pet. Yeah, and pet them too. Pet your pets.
Spay and pet the pets.
Spay and pet your pets.
Pet your spays and spay your pets.
Yep. And we'll talk to you next time. All right. See you guys.